Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today we're going to be talking about common piercing misconceptions. There is so much information out there and so much has changed over time in the piercing community. So today we're going to be debunking it a little bit and going over some common misconceptions that many might have, whether you are a piercer or have gotten pierced before. A lot of these stem from old practices, and this is a really good way to revisit these issues and address them and ensure that the information being put out there to you guys who are trying to heal a piercing is the right one. First is getting pierced with a piercing gun. So is this actually safe? The answer for this is no, and this is something we have always stood by. We have actually never used piercing guns to pierce here at Off Your Tree, which is pretty cool. This is not meant to shame practices who many years ago when piercing first started emerging started using piercing guns. Everyone's almost been there, it happens, but it's important to recognize that this is not a correct way to pierce somebody, and there are many reasons as to why. That of course it uses blunt force trauma. It's very damaging to the tissue because of the force trauma that is used. It pretty much forces jewelry into the ear without use of a needle, and this jewelry being used isn't even meant to be in a healing channel either. The jewelry also can't be sterilized properly, neither can the gun. The gun mechanism itself cannot be pulled apart, so if someone has sprayed blood into that by the off chance, there is a good chance that's going to be passed on to the next person, and that's very, very dangerous as it's direct blood to blood. Not only this, but just for general bacteria, you could be risking serious infections and even in some cases, life-threatening infections, which is something you do not want when getting pierced. And not only this, but the jewelry used does not allow for proper healing at all and doesn't utilize any swell room. You want to always make sure that you're getting pierced with a sterilized single-use needle or a multiple-use bladed needle that can be sterilized thoroughly in something like an autoclave. This ensures that you're the only person whose bodily fluids are coming in contact with this sterilized instrument, and not only this, you are not damaging the tissue any more than you need to, other than just creating the piercing channel for your jewelry to be put into. But always make sure when getting pierced that your piercer is using a needle and a needle only and not using a piercing gun. Second misconception that we're going to be talking about today is that twisting a healing piercing is actually good for the healing, and it ensures that your body is not going to get stuck to your jewelry while it's healing. Again, this is not factual information. Previously, when getting pierced many years ago, they used to use things like thread or silk to keep the piercing channel open rather than jewelry, and then in the future they would pop in your forever jewelry. This is where that concept of twisting your piercing came into play. Of course, with things like silk, it's porous, it's gritty, it's going to cause for when your piercing is starting to heal and it's starting to clot, that dried up blood and your fresh skin is going to fuse to that, and of course twisting it would then stop that from happening, right? But even though this worked back then, we obviously don't pierce with thread and silk anymore. We use different types of metals in place of this. Therefore meaning that you don't need to twist your piercing anymore because it's not going to fuse. Instead, if you do twist your piercing constantly, what's going to happen instead is you're going to have constant bacteria buildup getting popped onto your piercing there. You're going to be disrupting that healing. So imagine you've grazed your knee, and whenever your knee starts healing and it starts clotting up and you start getting a scab there, you're just sitting there and you're constantly picking that scab away, and then you're noticing, well, hold on, my knee's bleeding again. This is because you're disrupting the healing. So when doing this, it's the exact same thing as twisting a healing piercing, and you're constantly disrupting that healing there. So you want to make sure this is something you're not doing under any circumstances. The third piercing misconception is that cleaning your piercing with alcohol or methylated spirits is perfectly fine and gets the job done. And to this we say, absolutely not. Please don't do this. You want to make sure that you're using only piercing grade saline solution, as this is going to be the most gentle and less abrasive on your skin. When you have a fresh cut like this, or a piercing for example, your body thinks that this is an open wound. By forcing chemicals onto this, you are doing so much damage. It might not come straight away, you might not notice, and of course it's going to kill all bacteria, but at what cost? It's going to heavily dry out your piercing, and it could cause other complications like even allergic reactions. It's also going to excessively dry out the area, causing your body to overproduce fluids to make up for that lost moisture, and instead lead to way more complications than if you just cleaned it with saline solution. Relating back to our piercing gun conversation, we're now going to be talking about butterfly backs. So number 4 would be that butterfly backings are perfectly safe for permanent wear. Again, this is a complete misconception, as butterfly backings are not ideal for 24/7 wear in your piercing, but especially in a healing piercing. They might be fine for temporary wear. You might be able to wear them for a night out or during the day and then removing them at night and putting in your forever jewelry, or just for like one-offs or for things like fashion jewelry. But for long-term wear, you do not want to wear them constantly. This is for so many reasons. The first one being is your healing. So if you're healing a fresh piercing and you've got butterfly backs in there, they are not designed to give you enough swell space. Everyone swells, even though some say, I didn't swell with my piercing. You do get a little bit of swelling no matter what. We are putting trauma through the area by putting a needle there. So naturally, your body's going to react to this by swelling. And this is a completely normal bodily reaction, right? So with butterfly backings, naturally, instead of them being set at a certain length, like something like a labret bar, the way they are designed is that the backing can slide back and forth on the post, making the jewelry shorter or longer, depending on the thickness of your lobe. Although in theory, this sounds like it would be ideal in order for it to be customizable to the thickness of your lobe or your anatomy in that area, but instead, this is actually really problematic, especially when healing a fresh piercing. The reason for this is a lot of the time, what you will see instead is you will see the swelling, overswelling in the area, pressure being built up, and then this will cause the jewelry to actually start sinking in and the skin to start healing over that. This is problematic in so many ways, and in some really severe cases, you will actually need to get the backing surgically removed from the lobe. And it's honestly something that can just be avoidable by wearing the proper jewelry from the start and by avoiding piercing guns. Not only this, but the material that they're made of is really problematic for healing as well. If they are not made from 316 steel, titaniums, or solid gold, they are going to contain mystery metals that you don't even know. And this then could also affect your body by turning black, tarnishing in your skin, or causing an allergic reaction. They're also super unhygienic. When your body's healing, it's naturally going to produce lymph fluid, and when it's not healing, you're still going to get a little bit of oil release from piercings from time to time. And so with the design of the butterfly back, what it does is it pretty much just traps this, right? So all your crusties and everything is going to stay stuck to the backing there. It's going to be super annoying to get rid of. It's going to be rubbing up against your piercing constantly, causing lots of itchiness. It's just really not ideal to be wearing all the time. However, if you would like to wear them temporarily, then absolutely go for it. This is merely for permanent wear or to sleep in, wear in the shower, or just wear 24/7, and especially to wear in a healing piercing. Lastly is that you don't need to downsize your piercing, and that in fact it's actually a scam. This is not something that we advertise, or any piercing business for that fact advertises as a money grab or something where we can just take your money and run with it. This is actually something that is benefiting you and your piercing long term, to avoid the need to get it re-pierced or for it to migrate or for anything to happen to it that can be limited from downsizing. Again, this then takes us back to the everyone swells to a degree argument, which is completely true. Everyone's going to get a bar that suits their needs or that has a minimum amount of swelling room available, right? So when your piercing's completely healed, naturally that swelling, it goes down, or even after a couple of weeks, your swelling subsides over time, and then you get all this length added onto the bar. I used to refer to them as antennas, but they do kind of give off that vibe. They stick out quite a lot, they slide back and forth, they protrude. If you sleep on them, they lean quite a bit. These are all problems that will lead to bigger problems in the future if you don't downsize them. So for example, irritation bumps, we know that they're caused from friction sometimes, and this is often caused from not downsizing your piercing on time. This also goes for healing the piercing at an angle. A lot of the times people's piercings will heal angled like this instead of it being a complete 90-degree angle, and this is also because of the refusal to downsize your bar on time, and then constantly leaning or sleeping on the piercing is going to naturally make it tilt on an angle over time. And the only way that you can correct this is by actually completely piercing the area again. And that is a whole other process that you probably can't be bothered with. So by downsizing, you're avoiding that risk, and therefore it's less likely to happen. You can also have the piercing migrate because of this, again, because of the friction, like for something like a navel piercing or a nipple piercing, or even a bridge piercing. If you've got a lot of bar on that and it's moving back and forth side to side, the skin is going to start wearing away over time, and it's going to lead to migration or rejection. So this is why we really want to make sure we're downsizing our piercings. And lastly, the last risk associated with this is things like gum erosion or permanent damage to your body. So if you've got an oral piercing, say you've got a tongue piercing, of course, tongues, they swell a lot when you first get them pierced. So naturally, we put a longer bar in to accommodate for this. Once that swelling subsides and you're talking and eating, that long barbell is going to smack up against your teeth, it's going to rub against your gums, and you're going to end up with gum erosion. This is the same for lip piercings as well, because of that flat back disc rubbing up against your teeth. And if you bite down on them, you can even permanently damage your mouth by breaking teeth. This is going to lead to a very expensive dentist bill. Things like gum erosion are not reversible unless you're willing to spend lots and lots of money for a gum graft. And these are all things that can be completely avoided if you just downsize your piercing on time. That was just a couple of piercing misconceptions that we commonly hear as piercers. If you have any that you've heard or anything you would like some insight on, drop them down in the comments below, and we will see you for the next one. Bye, guys.